Americans reined in their spending in April after a shopping spree fueled by fears of tariffs. The month before, that is. The latest report from the Commerce Department revealed that consumer spending increased a bit last month, but it was a notable retreat from March. Consumers appear to be retreating on spending to build their savings. The savings rate jumped to a one-year high of nearly 5%. The report also found inflation cooled off again, moving closer to the Federal Reserve's 2% target. At the same time, with many tariffs now in place, imports are collapsing. This is based on a separate report from the Commerce Department's Census Bureau. Last month, the goods trade deficit narrowed sharply. It contracted by 46% to about $87 billion. This came after a rush to beat import duties pushed the goods trade gap to a record high in March. Front-running imports may not be fully over yet, too. Higher duties for most countries were postponed until July, with Chinese tariffs delayed until August. China is easing up on its rare earth exports as shortages threaten some companies. Rare earth magnets are critical and used in everything from home appliances to fighter jets. China controls the vast majority of that market. It imposed restrictions last month that required exporters to obtain licenses from Beijing. Since then, a handful of licenses have been granted. But Indian automakers say they have received none and will have to stop production next month. A spokesperson for China's foreign ministry said it is ready to strengthen talks and cooperation over export controls. President Donald Trump today said China has violated its tariff agreement with the United States. Trump wrote on social media that the news is perhaps no surprise to some. So much for being Mr. Nice Guy, Trump added. Under the agreement, U.S. duties on Chinese goods dropped from 145% to 30%, while China cut its tariffs on American products from 125% to 10%. The Trump administration praised the outcome as a win for the U.S. Trump said today he struck the deal quickly to prevent what he called grave economic danger for China due to pressure from U.S. tariffs. U.S. trade talks with China are a bit stalled, according to Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent today. He said that getting a deal over the finish line will likely need the direct involvement of President Trump and Chinese Communist Party leader Xi Jinping.
Of our trading partners, they are coming to us in good faith and trying to complete the deals before the 90-day pause ends. So we've seen no change in their attitude in the past 48 hours. There are a couple of very large deals that are close. A couple of them are more complicated. And as we saw with the president's threat of 50% tariffs last Friday, the EU came to the table very quickly over the weekend.
Bessent helped broker a breakthrough between the U.S. and China earlier this month, easing trade tensions with a 90-day rollback of recent tariffs. The agreement was reached in Switzerland on May 12th and followed weeks of escalating pressure. Despite progress, friction remains. The U.S. continues to tighten tech restrictions on Beijing, while China has yet to ease its grip on rare earth exports. Chipmaker Nvidia is under the microscope as it plans to open up shop in Shanghai, China. U.S. senators are questioning the company's decision, citing the national security risks. NTD's Melina Wisecup reports.
An unlikely partnership on Capitol Hill, Republican Senator Jim Banks and Democrat Senator Elizabeth Warren. They're pressing American-based AI chipmaker Nvidia over its reported plans to start a research and development office in Shanghai, China. They wrote to CEO Jensen Huang, "It is troubling that American firms are helping the PRC build cutting-edge semiconductor capacity, which will aid the country's defense industrial complex and techno-authoritarian capacity." CEO Jensen Huang has long criticized the U.S. export controls of semiconductors, saying it threatens America's AI leadership and has caused Nvidia to lose significant market share.
Nvidia's market share in China was about 95% 4 years ago. It's about 50% today, because of the limitations on the products that we sell.
Regardless, the senators say the company's decision warrants serious review, asking a list of questions about plans for the center and whether Nvidia will receive benefits or support from the Chinese regime. writing, the Chinese Communist Party has a long track record of military-civil fusion and mercantilist arm twisting, including forced technology transfers in exchange for market access and state-supported espionage against companies. The senators gave Huang until June 20th to respond to their concerns. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
No relief for prospective home buyers as borrowing costs have just been pushed further up. Mortgage buyer Freddie Mac reports that the average rate on a 30-year mortgage rose this week to 6.89%. That is the highest level since early February. Borrowing costs on 15-year fixed-rate mortgages also rose. The average climbed up to 6.03%. Both rates are still down from a year ago. Rising mortgage rates are bringing down home sales during the traditional peak period for buying. The Mortgage Bankers Association reports that mortgage applications fell last week from a week earlier, but applications for a home loan are up from a year earlier. The Justice Department has dropped its criminal case against Boeing. This decision comes despite the carrier's previous guilty plea for 2 crashes that killed a total of 346 people. According to the DOJ's filing, reaching a non-prosecution agreement with Boeing was the better option. Under the deal, Boeing will pay nearly $445 million for a victims fund, in addition to the $500 million already paid. But Boeing will now be able to hire outside contractors to oversee operations rather than be under the oversight of a federally appointed monitor. Boeing says it is committed to improving safety. Next, is the Justice Department's focus on Google's dominance in the search industry looking in the right direction? A federal judge is raising questions about the future of artificial intelligence in the world of internet search. NTD's Sean Marshall has more.
Federal judge is asking the Justice Department whether the recent implementation of artificial intelligence search features leaves room for emerging search engine companies. Judge Amit P. Mehta is overseeing the trial where DOJ is proposing remedies to Google's search monopoly. His question raises the possibilities that if he approves the DOJ's proposals, artificial intelligence companies could get a boost. The case has already rattled Google's status as the go-to tool to find information online. According to a SearchEngineLand.com survey, AI search adoption is highest among younger Americans, but the vast majority still prefer classic search engines. The survey finds that 71.5% use AI tools for search, 14% use them daily, 79.8% prefer Google or Microsoft Bing for general information searches, 20.2% have changed their primary search platform within the last year. A witness from OpenAI testified in the case that the ChatGPT creator is years away from its goal of being able to use its own research technology to answer 80% of queries. Recently, Google has been slowly releasing their own AI search functions to the public. An attorney for Google said at the trial that while generative AI is influencing how search looks, Google has addressed concerns about competition in AI by no longer entering exclusive agreements with wireless carriers and smartphone makers, including Samsung Electronics. This leaves them free to load rival search and AI apps on new devices. Sean Marshall, NTD News.
Volkswagen wants to make more big investments in the United States. That's according to its CEO. He said that tariff talks with the U.S. were fair and constructive. CEO Oliver Bloom said the Volkswagen Group has a growth strategy. He also leads Porsche AG. Bloom said Volkswagen's main contact in Washington was Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, adding he had agreed to keep any details of the discussions confidential. He says the Volkswagen Group already employed more than 20,000 people directly and more than 55,000 people indirectly in the United States, and highlighted a $5.8 billion investment in U.S. company Rivian. He says such investments should be factored into any decision on tariffs. Grammy Award-winning singer Taylor Swift now owns her entire music catalog. Swift made the announcement on her website Friday. The 35-year-old has been in a battle for roughly 6 years to buy back the master recording after her former record label sold them to Shamrock Capital. Swift now has the rights to all her music videos, concert films, album art, and unreleased songs. Big news for you Swifties out there. President Trump called Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell to the White House yesterday. The pair had their first face-to-face meeting since Trump took office in January. Here's more.
Both sides confirmed that the meeting happened at the president's invitation. In a statement afterwards, the Fed said Powell told the president that future monetary policy would depend entirely on economic data. White House spokeswoman Caroline Leavitt set out Trump's take.
The president and I both saw the statement that the Fed put out after the meeting. That statement is correct. However, the president did say that he believes the Fed chair is making a mistake by not lowering interest rates, which is putting us at an economic disadvantage to China and other countries. And the president's been very vocal about that, both publicly and now I can reveal privately as well.
Earlier this month, the Fed left rates unchanged, and bank officials have since signaled that policy could stay on hold for some months more, while they wait for clarity on the impact of tariffs. The Fed is concerned that trade turmoil could slow the economy, but also stoke inflation. That makes for a tough call on whether to raise or lower rates. Financial markets are currently pricing in a cut in September, with another to follow in December. Trump elevated Powell to Fed chair during his first term, but soon fell out with him over interest rates. In April, stocks tumbled amid market fears that the president could try to remove Powell from his post. Trump later denied ever having any such intention.
A civil lawsuit against the world's largest cryptocurrency exchange has been dropped. The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission has voluntarily dismissed its case against Binance. Binance and its founder Zhangpeng Zhao were accused of artificially inflating trading volumes, diverting customer funds, and misleading investors. The SEC said dismissing the case was appropriate, but does not reflect its views on cryptocurrency litigation. In a statement, Binance called the dismissal a landmark moment and said the Trump administration recognizes that innovation can't thrive under regulation by enforcement. Gap shares fell today after the Old Navy owner warned that U.S. tariffs would squeeze this year's profits. Here's more.
Shares of Gap plunged 20% on Friday after the retailer joined a growing list of companies that have warned that U.S. tariffs would squeeze this year's profits. Gap flagged tariff-related costs of up to $300 million, which analysts said would weigh on the company's margins through the second half of the year and into 2026. The apparel maker aims to soften the blow by diversifying its supply chain across its brands, which include Old Navy, Athleta, and Banana Republic, and by investing in cotton grown in the United States. Some retailers, including Best Buy, have accounted for the tariffs, and a few others have pulled their forecasts. Gap reaffirmed its annual forecasts, but it excluded the tariff impact from its outlook. At least 3 brokerages trimmed their price targets on the stock, which had surged 30% this month.
Costco missed third-quarter revenue expectations and said it pulled forward shipments of some goods it planned to import this summer to lower the impact of tariffs. The membership-only retail chain said raising prices would be a last resort, unlike larger rival Walmart, which has said it would start raising prices later this month. Target opted not to raise prices, but slashed its annual outlook. Costco said it rerouted many goods sourced from other countries, from countries with large exposure to U.S. tariffs, to its non-U.S. markets. Cheers to non-alcoholic beer. A new forecast has non-alcoholic beer on track to overtake ale as the second largest beer category this year.
A toast is in order for non-alcoholic beer. The drink has been growing in popularity, especially with younger drinkers. Industry tracker IWSR reports that Gen Z drinks less than prior generations at the same age, and millennials have the largest share who don't drink alcohol. IWSR found overall beer volume actually fell roughly 1% last year, but at the same time, volume for non-alcoholic beer grew 9% worldwide. IWSR is projecting that non-alcoholic beer is on track to overtake ale as the second largest beer category by volume this year. The group is forecasting non-alcoholic beer will grow 8% annually through 2029, while ale volume is expected to slide during the same time. Recent growth isn't enough for non-alcoholic beer to catch up to lager, though, which is the largest beer category and still growing. For perspective, non-alcoholic beer holds about 2% of worldwide market share, while lager holds 92%.
The S&P 500 ended nearly flat today after a volatile session. Still, the index closed out its best month since November 2023. The Nasdaq also posted its largest monthly gain since then. Despite concerns about stalled trade talks and tariffs, strong earnings and tame inflation helped markets recover from April lows. Consumer spending rose 2.1% in April, and investors still expect a Fed rate cut in September. That's it for today's Business Matters.